We're going to talk about the ethics of integrating the yamas and niyamas into the classroom. First and foremost, let me say that the yamas and niyamas are the ethical practice guide our life as a yoga practitioner. They're kind of blueprint, the buffers to set us on this, to keep us, if you will, on this path. They're not like these hard and fast demands rules. We still are required to use our discernment when it comes to life and dealing with people and everything that exists in our world. But it's good to kind of have a blueprint, a plan, if you will, that you can follow in order to make sure and to see if you were staying on this path. But how does that apply to the classroom as a yoga teacher? How do you bring those principles into your 60, 75, 90-minute classes, or even into your lecture sessions and workshops? How do you make that possible? So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. We'll do a little Q&A along the way, but feel free to take notes of any questions that you have, and I'll make sure that I open the floor for that as we move through this morning. So we're going to explore the ethical teachings of yoga through the lens of the yamas and niyamas. They're not just these ancient concepts. That what I do love about yoga is it applies to today as well. The living guidelines of how we hold space, how we interact with students, and how we create a rooted sense of safety, which then offers space for liberation within a classroom. Teaching yoga is not just sharing postures, as we know that we're building community, building relationships and trust, and that trust requires a modicum of ethics. So why this matters, teaching yoga places us in a position of authority and influence, whether we like it or not. Maybe we showed up to share a practice, maybe we showed up to yoga to use it as a means of recovery for self. Maybe we showed up for healing. Maybe we showed up for a workout. Whatever the reason for you being in that space, once you become a teacher, you are in a position of influence and authority, and people are going to listen to the things that you say. Now, I know that we all may have this, but we're adults, but people should have their own autonomy and make their own decisions and do what they want. No one is forcing anyone to do fill in the blank. But we also know if we're having a genuine conversation about this, we know that that's not really how people work. We know that people end up following groups and communities, and there's a thing called groupthink, and there's social norms when it comes to being in community with other people that take place, and folks can get caught up in things. So let's not pretend as though just because we're adults that in this particular case, we're too far away from our 10-year-old selves. We still want to be included, want to be liked, we still want to be a part of some sort of social group, community, or build connections. So students may be physically vulnerable, emotionally open, or spiritually seeking when they come to your class, and they're trying to find some sense of balance and grounding, and know that whether it is spoken or unspoken, they're kind of looking to you for that. So ethical grounding prevents harm and ensures the practices serve as liberation for the student, not an ego boost for the teacher. So we'll also talk about the Black Prana method that emphasizes ethics as a foundation, and that's not an afterthought. Ultimately, for me, my purpose is to build community where people feel seen and connected, and they know that they can seek safety within the space. We do our level best to create a sense of safety and connection that is available to all students that come through our door. So the yamas in the classroom, ahimsa, nonviolence, making sure we're not harming through words, actions, or adjustments that we're making to people. If people don't want you to put your hands on them, don't. And you need to ask before you do. These days, for me personally, I definitely limit any of my hands-on adjustments that I offer, um, just because my comfort level as a teacher has changed with offering adjustments. And after this is in a post-COVID world as well, I tend to keep my distance a little bit more unless I have worked with that student for um, a long period of time and we have a sense of comfortability and connection. But in a post-COVID world, hands-on adjustments for me personally have changed. Now, with that being said, that does not mean that you don't adjust students, that you don't offer it, but make sure that you have clear consent and a working relationship with that student, that if a hands-on adjustment is needed, that they feel comfortable with you being in their personal space in that way. And if they don't, then you back off and stay away. This is not the time to be like, well, let me just, well, maybe if you know, if they have decided that they do not want someone in their personal space in any given moment throughout the class, that then is their right to do so. They're well within their rights to do so. There may be postures that are unsafe for you to interfere with. So you want to make sure that you aren't affecting someone's balance when they're standing on one leg and you're offering adjustments that aren't necessary. Make sure that you have consent. And that consent can be taken away or given back throughout the class, depending on what's going on. And you as a teacher must honor that. Example, consent-based assist offer inclusive cueing. So if someone is struggling in a particular posture and you notice that there is more that their body may be able to give or to offer to a posture, that is your time to use your words first and offer a modification to the original cue that you provided. If you notice the body is struggling, that is a cue to you that the words that you are currently using may not be as effective as you thought they were. So offer a modification in words first. This gives the opportunity for the student to change what they're currently doing and or stay with what they're currently doing because it is probably serving them. And that ultimately is what we are here for. So the question that I want you to take in and take notes on is, how do words land on different kind of bodies? Meaning what you say is going to land differently for different people. If this is a person who has experienced some sort of trauma throughout their life, and let's be honest, who hasn't, because life ultimately is traumatizing to some degree. I heard someone say we've all had trauma because childhood is traumatic, no matter if it is good, bad, or indifferent. So the words that we use in class when they're now standing in front of us as their adult self can be triggering to people. Now, with that being said, though your intent is not to do harm when you are offering cues, it just may be something that comes out that is mindless, or once we find out that this has adversely impacted someone, we want to do what we can to help support that student, that person through that moment without making it about us, okay? So the question is, how do my words land on different kinds of bodies? Or do we have an awareness to the words that we are using in order to make sure that we're not inadvertently causing harm where we otherwise should not be? All right, so Satya is next. This is our truthfulness. Be authentic. If you do not teach in a super soft yoga bunny voice, do not show up to class doing that. If that is not your normal speaking voice, don't do that to people in class, because it creates this strange disconnect of they saw you in class and you had this, I don't know, whisper register voice, and they're like, oh my goodness, this person sounds like this, and they begin to create this model of who you are, and then you step out into the lobby after class and you sound completely different. That creates an inauthentic experience, and it inadvertently harms the trust that the student is working to build in you. So be transparent, like be who you are as a teacher. You do not have to change your person in order to attract the right students to come to you. The people that need your class will find you. And once they do, fully honor their experience. Keep in mind and know that you are there for them, that you are there to support them in the way that they need, not for you to get something from them. Admit what you don't know. Don't claim false authority. If you have not been practicing for 20 years, don't tell people that you have been practicing for 20 years. If posture isn't in your wheelhouse and you tell folks that it is, don't do that. Don't do that, because ultimately there's going to come a point where you have to demo, and if you physically cannot do the thing, folks are going to know. They're going to notice. So if you too have not been a student of your own practice, so you cannot speak to your lived experience, you don't want to pretend otherwise. Practice and share from lived experience rather than imitation. So the one thing about yoga is, and I'm sure we've all heard this at this point, but it does bear repeating, is that it's 1% theory and 99% practice. Most of the things that we learn from, especially a physical asana practice perspective, we learn them on the mat. We learn them when we're out and about in public, and we take these ethics and these principles and apply them to the person that has pissed you off in traffic. Those are our lived experiences that allow us to be better teachers, not because someone told you to, I don't know, put your leg behind your head and now you're just mimicking them, but you have no idea what purpose this particular posture serves. But oh my goodness, I can make the shape, so I guess I'm doing the thing. That is not what we're going for here. So being authentic in your practice, being transparent in the person that you are, being authentic in who you are, admit what you don't know, admit when you're wrong, or that be clear in if your view has changed on something. And that's okay, because that's a part of the human experience, because again, we're sharing from our lived experience. So if there's something that shaped you and changed how you see something now, okay, share, feel free to share it with your students. But don't pretend to be something that you're not. So number 3, Asya is non-stealing. Asteya is non-stealing. Don't steal from students' energy, culture, or trust. Energetically, you don't want to use your students as the example in the classroom is using your students to always demo things and you not doing the thing. That is a form of stealing from them energetically. You as the teacher, yes, your advanced students may want to show and share, and on occasion, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it should not be the regular thing where you've taken a backseat to doing demos or something like that, and relying on your students to provide that for you, because they're there for a specific experience, and they're there for you as a teacher. From a cultural perspective, if it is not yours, please do not wear it. Please do not put it on as a costume. For instance, this is one that I've experienced before. Wearing a bindi, if that is not culturally appropriate for you, if that is not tied intrinsically to your culture, to your religion, to anything that has to do with you outside of you thought it was cool and you decided to wear it, that's not okay. That's not okay. So you want to make sure that you are not trying on someone else's culture as a costume to be the performative yoga teacher. Again, that goes back to authenticity. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. And don't steal from their trust. We all have, there's always space for misunderstanding when it comes to dealing with people and being in community. It happens. We are human. If something happens and there's a disconnect or breakdown in communication and or understanding, this is your moment to work to reconcile that, to maintain that trust. But if we don't give voice to it, if we don't do the work to reconcile it, that's where trust can be broken. And it's on us as teachers, because again, we are human too, but it's on us as teachers to get in front of that conversation from a place of sincerity and do what we can to repair necessary. Avoid appropriating practices without context. If you are going to speak Sanskrit in class, make a concerted effort to have the proper pronunciations. Please do not be lazy with your words just because you feel like you can, or that does not matter. It does matter to someone. Remember these things, especially in the US, especially in the Western world. We are a melting pot and amalgamation of a lot of different people from a lot. Some of us are here on purpose. Some of us are here because we were brought here. But with that came culture and ancestry and experience, all of those things that were brought here. So you want to make sure that you're giving, that you are paying homage or giving respect to where those things came from and not just taking without any context. So if you're going to teach chants, you want to make sure that you're teaching it with cultural respect, not just using these things as decoration or using them as a means to prove just how much of a yoga teacher you are. If you're going to introduce these things into your classrooms, know what you're talking about. Take the time to be a student of the practice, and so you can share from a place of sincerity. The other piece of this is if someone from that culture tells you, hey, this isn't okay, or hey, here's how you can improve it, do not get your feelings hurt about them making that observation for you. Be grateful that they wanted to take the time out of their day and their experience to educate you on something. Because I will tell you for myself personally, being someone's racism Sherpa is exhausting. And it's not something that I do willingly most of the time, unless I'm being paid for it. And I'm just keeping it a buck. It's exhausting to have cultural nuanced conversations both in and outside of the classroom. So do not ask someone else to do the emotional labor for you. And if they do come to you, if they're willing to do that emotional labor from a place of kindness, be respectful and listen, because they're telling you these things because they care enough about you as a person and want you, one, not to offend or harm anyone else, and two, they're offering you the opportunity to grow as a teacher, and that too is important because ultimately, if we make a commitment to continue to be students, that's kind of what we're all here for as well. All right, so next, Brahmacharya, wise use of energy, maintaining professional boundaries, maintaining professional boundaries, maintaining professional boundaries. Am I saying that you can't have friendships with your students? No, I'm not saying that at all, but you want to maintain a modicum of professional boundaries. We all know in polite society what is and what isn't okay. So if it is something that you would not feel comfortable being brought to the light, then you probably should not be doing it. If it gives you the ick, if a person gives you the ick, that is a sign that professional boundaries are not being maintained. And it's your time and your opportunity to go. Stealing someone's energy in class and wise use of our energy as a teacher, this cannot be just kind of glossed over. It is not something that we're just, oh yeah, we should do that because everybody is here for love and light and everyone has the best intentions. That's not the case. That's not the case. So maintaining clear professional boundaries in order to allow yoga the space to continue to thrive is of the utmost importance. Because what we don't want is when teachers do things that are inappropriate, that bring harm to communities, that bring harm to people. Now, yoga itself as a practice, we end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater because we talk about yoga is the problem when that's not really the problem. It is people that are the problem. So as the teachers, we need to maintain our professional boundaries in order to preserve and continue to teach the great things that yoga has to offer. If we care about the practice, the maintenance of these boundaries are important. If a student speaks up about an experience that they have had that they're uncomfortable with, it is on us as teachers to respect what that person is saying. And in that moment, do what we can to equip them with the necessary tools and or resources to aid them in that situation. That does not mean that we have to have the answers, because chances are, if it's egregious enough for the student to bring it to you, it may be something that is beyond our resource as a teacher. We might have to bring it to the studio owner, and it may have to escalate further from there. But our job as a teacher in that moment, when that student expresses their level of discomfort, that we do what we can to uplift and support them and believe the experience that they are having. That's it. Not to poo-poo it, not to aid them in a form of spiritual bypassing, where we just tell them it's their ego and their ego is the problem, and maybe they should look at it for this perspective, or say something to the tune of, but so-and-so is a really good person, because the goodness of the person is not up for debate. We're talking about the impact of their actions, and that's what matters. That's what has to be resolved. Making sure that we are channeling our energy toward service, toward that of service and not of exploitation. You're not standing up there to get what you can out of the students that are in the classroom. You are standing up there to facilitate them getting the best out of themselves. It has nothing to do with you. You are just the guide. You're not the healer. You are not the healer. You are not the healer. You are just there to facilitate the opportunity for them to find whatever it is that they are looking for and whatever it is that they need. To be somewhat cliche about it, you are there to facilitate them finding their light and turning it on for themselves. You're not the focus point. An example of this: avoid teacher-student relationships that blur lines of trust, because no matter what, in that particular dynamic, you're the person of authority. So they're always going to feel like, or it always presents a situation where they have to listen to you in some manner, or there could be repercussions. And the repercussions don't necessarily have to be anything that's dangerous on the surface, but what if it adversely affects their practice? What if it adversely affects their ability to come back to that studio? No one wants to be in that type of situation. In addition, now they've lost a sense of community. They've lost a sense of connection. So doing what we can to avoid student relationships that have the possibility to blur the lines between trust is very important. Number 5, aparigraha, so not grasping. Don't cling to being a guru or the center of attention. I tell students all the time, I am not your guru. I'm just a basic bitch trying to get tacos on a Tuesday like everybody else. I, as a teacher, am a part of this regular human experience. I make mistakes. I do great things. I do not so great things. It's all a part of me being as equally as human. The only difference is, in this particular case, for somebody that I'm talking to, I may have just been practicing studying yoga a little bit longer than you have. So I have a few more lived experiences that I'm willing to share with you. That's really it. But me clinging to this idea of guru and center attention, no thanks. I personally don't want it either. But I'm aware that that as a teacher, especially as a seasoned teacher at this point, and someone who's practiced for a while, I do have things to share that are of value. So I want to make sure that those who are in need of that level of sharing, that they get what they need, because that is important. But it won't be to the detriment of students. It won't be to the detriment of students. Allow students their autonomy. If someone says that they have the ick and they don't like a posture, they don't like what's going on, it's well within their rights to have the ick, not like a posture, and not like what's going on. You don't need to say or do anything about it. This is not your time to superimpose your feelings about their level of discomfort, because their personal discomfort doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. Because again, you aren't the center of attention. They are. They get to be the lead character in their story. It's not for you to interfere with that. And again, we don't know what past traumas this person has experienced as to why they may not like fill in the blank on whatever happens to be going on. And it's okay for them not to like it. It's not your job to willfully still their autonomy and still their power. The practice is releasing attachment to the perfection that is teaching, that this idea that yoga teachers come in this particular cookie cutter way, and if you don't look like this, act like this, sound like this, that and then your voice can't be heard, and that it doesn't matter. That's not the case. That is not the case by far. If you are coming to yoga as a teacher because you are concerned with becoming a guru, or you want to be a center of attention, or you see this as a way to build this big brand and big business, then you're not here for the right reason. You have to be here for the people that are showing up to your class, and be aware of how people typically show up to yoga classes. Most folks are showing up looking for something. They're looking for their version of healing. That's not for you to decide whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And that's also not for you to exploit in some way, shape, or form. So, to tie a bow on the yamas, we'll go through them one more time. So ahimsa is that nonviolence, do not harm through word, actions, or adjustment. Satya, be authentic, transparent, and honest as a teacher. Asteya, don't steal from students' energy, culture, or trust. Brahmacharya is wise energy, maintain professional boundaries. Aparigraha, non-practicing, do not cling to the idea of being a guru or the center of attention, because that does not serve you and that does not serve your students. And the reason it does not serve you and it doesn't serve your students is because inadvertently people will put you on a pedestal and you are going to fall, because you cannot maintain the mask. You cannot maintain the image that they've created of you forever in perpetuity if this isn't who you are to begin with. So show up with authenticity, show up being yourself. Don't claim to be someone's guru when you're not. And your focus, once again, should not be to be the center of attention, because all that does is create a harmful situation for both you and for the students as well. All right, so let's talk about the niyamas in the classroom. Satya, so cleanliness and purity, maintain a safe, clean space, and physically and energetically. So safe, clean space, it goes without being said. The floor is swept, the floor is swept, the floor is swept. The bane of my existence in the studios when the floor is not clean, it drives me crazy. If you are online teaching, like I happen to be right now, making sure that you're in a quiet room so there's no excess noise, so students aren't distracted by the things that are going on within the room. And the other thing is, like this picture that's behind me, it's just one thing that's on the wall. It's not overly busy. So making sure even your background is as clear as possible, it does help maintain the energetic integrity of the space when you have to be teaching online. In the physical studio space, being mindful that any candles that you have are unscented, because we don't know what allergies people may have, and that too can now create an additional distraction for that student and interfere with the experience of their practice. The other thing that we want to be mindful of when we're maintaining a safe space physically and energetically is if a student is disrupting a class while the class is going on. If you are teaching a sequenced asana practice and everyone is doing the same thing, but you have this one lone student that is just doing something completely different, that can disturb the energy in the classroom. So ways that you can address it, and it can disturb the energy in the classroom and still from their experience. And it also steals a bit of your attention as well, because you're left kind of wondering what the heck is going on. So ways that you can manage this in the classroom. As you're teaching, you can quietly go over to that person and check in to make sure that they're okay, depending on the response that you get, to kind of bump them back on track. If you get a very negative response, you're well within your rights to ask someone to leave a class as the teacher if it is that egregious and that disruptive. But just know that you have a responsibility to the other students that are there that have decided to give their time, energy, effort and financial means to show up to this class, you want to make sure that you're preserving that environment as well. And it does matter because when energetically, when the space isn't clean or an effort to keep it clean isn't made, it can skew folks' experience of the yoga practice. And in some cases, it may make them not want to come back. And that's 1,000% understandable. So encourage students to clear distractions before practice. So when you're in the physical space, this means your backpacks, water bottles, watches, phones, all of those things. Do your level best to leave them outside of the practice room because they serve as distractions. And the whole point in that hour, that 75-minute class, that 90-minute class, is to fully immerse yourself in that particular experience, to give yourself the opportunity for introspection. But if you're still distracted by the outside world things, that's very hard to do. Now, with that being said, the only caveat that I will give is your Apple Watch, and those of us who have other fit tech watches. But what I will say is put it on Do Not Disturb, so at least your notifications are off. But if you want to use it to close your rings, look here, I told you I'm a regular person like everybody else. So I get the need to want your rings to close and you want to get all of the points, so to speak, that you can. But make sure that we're mitigating even the distraction that is. So putting it on Do Not Disturb is a good idea. The other thing that you can do to help your students kind of foster this energetic space of idea of cleanliness is at the beginning of the class, you can also say, put your phones on Do Not Disturb. And at the end of class, give them an idea, hey, by the way, if this is going to be a regular part of your practice, if you're going to show up for this hour, for this moment for yourself, let the people in your life know that this is what you're doing so they don't bother you. Now, that does not guarantee that they won't bother you, but it gives an opportunity for it to be a thing. All right, and secondly, as we encourage students to clear distractions from an online space in a clean, quiet room is the best way to support. Turning the TV off, turning additional music off, trying to keep as few people in the space as possible if you can. I know with kids can be virtually impossible. With kids and pets, that can be virtually impossible because they typically don't care whatever else you're doing. But if you can make an effort to do that, that does aid in a student having a quality practice experience if they're learning from home with you and if you happen to be teaching from home like I am in this particular moment. All right, so next we'll talk about santosha, which is contentment. So the thing with contentment is this is an opportunity to model gratitude and contentment instead of competitiveness. Being okay with what is going on your mat and in your experience of the time. As a teacher, this comes about when, let's say that you have an injury, or this is the 10th class that you've taught in a week, and maybe your body is a little tired. Maybe you're feeling a little worn, burnt out, what have you. It all happens because we're all human and we're a part of this experience. Can we be content with where we are in that moment, even though we're aware that things are a little bit harder than we may want them to be, or they're a little bit harder than we're accustomed to them being? That's okay. We can still be satisfied within our practice, but have the awareness that, oh, this could possibly change. This could possibly feel different. Maybe it'll feel different tomorrow, but we're not beating ourselves up about what it looks like today in this moment. This gives us the opportunity to help students celebrate their wins and students celebrate their progress as well, because now we're modeling that behavior for them. But it's not modeling that behavior in a Pollyanna, oh, everything's bright and shiny, let's not pretend like there's something not going on over here. No, we can give voices like, yeah, it's a little rough today, but here are my wins. We want to model that behavior because, once again, those small wins, those are the things that give them the opportunity to see themselves in the posture, see themselves in class and in community in that space, and it increases the chance that they'll come back again. So number 3 is tapas, which is your discipline. This is your showing up consistently and being prepared. Now, showing up to the mat, I want to say, is half the battle. G.I. Joe. for those of you who needed that this morning. Um, that consistency in you showing up to your practice is where growth can happen. You may not feel like it every day, but if we're digging into the discipline of our tapas, your feelings in that sense don't really make a difference because we're leaning on the muscle of discipline that we have built and that we are building. Um, so we continue to come to the mat even when things are hard. And that's what keeps you coming back and gives you the opportunity to to continue to practice even when you're just like, I'm not feeling this today, but this is a habit I've built. Also know that discipline is a muscle, just like anything else. If you don't use it, you will lose it. So what habits you want to build, what habits you want to grow, what habits you want to expound upon, what habits you want ingrained in your system and in your psyche, you're going to have to work on them. This idea that, oh, some people are more disciplined than others, yes, they are, but know that that discipline was earned wholeheartedly and they kept showing up and they kept doing the thing. They kept giving themselves the opportunity for growth. And then from there, maintaining your personal practice as a teacher helps fuel your teaching. So remember, I said at the beginning, you want to be a student, which is you want to be a teacher. These things work hand in hand. When you're stuck in your teaching, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like if you're teaching a hatha based class or one where let's say you're teaching a flow one and your transitions feel stagnant, um, that is your time on your mat. It gives you an opportunity to work out and find things that are available that you can now teach and share with your students. Go to other classes, learn new things, learn about a new transition that you may not have thought of, and some other teacher has it in their teaching bag. But the only way to do that to expand your ability to teach is making sure that you're keeping your personal practice. Now, from an Ashtanga perspective, that is totally different because we know the primary series is that, and that the postures that you're asked to do doesn't change. But what does change is your experience of them each time you show up to the mat. And that lived experience is where in which we're teaching from when it comes to the Ashtanga practice in particular. Swadhyaya, so it's self-study, knowing what it takes, what parameters you have to put in order for yourself to be successful as a teacher. This means committing yourself to learning about you, your biases and your triggers, so we don't bring those things into the classroom and don't bring those things to our students. So if you know that you need a certain level of support to be on time to teach your class, and to get there on time and to create a great environment for them, make sure that you are leveraging those tools in order to support yourself in the way that's necessary to ensure that you get to class on time. But you have to study yourself to know that. You have to spend some time with you, spend some time in your meditative practice. This is one thing that I like to refer to as dating yourself, because if you don't know who you are, how can you expect the outside world to know what you want and what you need if you don't know? And the only way for you to know and to have a better understanding of that is to get to know yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to create space, to give yourself the opportunity to create time for reflection. And in that reflection time, you can journal about it later. You can put a note in your phone about it later. And these are all things that now you can have within your teaching arsenal and your teaching bucket. So when you show up to the classroom, you're aware of the things that you can and cannot do, the places that you need to grow and the places that you excel on. And you can double down on those things to incorporate them into your teaching to create a better experience for your students. All good things. Number 5 is Isvara Pranidhara, which is surrender to the divine, remembering that teaching is a service, it's not a performance. You are there to serve the people that are in front of you, not to perform for them. I say this all the time, 99.9% of the time, students don't give a shit about your handstand. They care that you can get them in one. So I'm not there to perform these amazing feats of look at me, but I am there to hold space and facilitate and give words and knowledge, give direction, guidance, and knowledge to help the student facilitate the posture that I'm asking them to do or that they want to do. that they'd like to learn in it and include in their practice. I am there to be of service, not to perform for the students. This isn't your, your debut audience. That is a different skill. There is a different time and place for that. Your yoga teaching is not that. Trust the practice itself rather than control over its outcomes. Knowing that yoga will give you space to grow into whatever it is that you need to be as a teacher. If you engage in that tapas and that discipline, that swayaya, that self-study, it gives you the opportunity to grow into who you are as a teacher, but that takes time. So it's not going to be an overnight. It's not a microwave it. It's not a 30 seconds or less experience. It takes time. There is just one of my favorite things my teacher says is, and then more yoga, because that's really what it is. Once you master this part of teaching or have a better understanding of this portion of teaching, there's just more yoga thereafter. There's more things for you to learn. There's more exploration for you to make and take. But giving yourself the gift of trusting the practice and the opportunity for it to grow, rather than trying to control. I have to do it this way. It has to look like this, and it would, and it should. And if I did this, then I would be, or if I check these boxes, I should get to have as a teacher. That's not what we are here for. That is not what we are looking for. We want to make sure that we allow space and grace for our yoga practice to meet us, allow space and grace for us to, for the ability and the opportunity for us to expand from there. Very, very, very important. All right, so I hope that you found this helpful. Our next thing to do is to have a few breakout reflections, and we will kind of take the time to write down what yamas and niyamas, which one impacted you in regards to how you want to embody these trainings in, how you want to embody this ethical practice within your teaching. I'll give you some time to write that down for yourself, and then we'll talk through it a little bit. So that is our next order of business. No. Okay. So we are going to I'm going to give you all time to write down the impact on yamas and niyamas on your teaching, and from what we went over this morning, and then we'll have a discussion thereafter. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. Let's say I'll give you about 5 minutes to kind of write your thoughts, and then on, because I think we should be okay then for us to have a discussion. Reset. Go ahead and start right now, and then I'll be back.